My family found a new hero. Let's see how they live without me.
The wrench slipped from my oil-stained fingers when I heard my own voice echoing from the garage radio. My wife acts like a queen with a jester for a husband, I had said during yesterday's interview about local marriages. The irony tasted like motor oil. I'm Jake Morrison, 38, and I fix things for a living. Cars mostly, but apparently not marriages. My wife Sarah thinks I'm beneath her now, ever since she started working at Riverside High as an administrator. She used to laugh at my jokes. Now she laughs at me. "Turn that garbage off," Tony yelled from under a Chevy. "Nobody wants to hear your domestic problems on the morning show." I clicked it off, but the damage was done. 3 other mechanics had heard it too. They all knew Sarah treated me like hired help at home. What they didn't know was how much worse it had gotten lately. That evening, our 15-year-old daughter Emma sat picking at her meatloaf while Sarah scrolled through her phone, smiling at something I couldn't see. "How was school?" I asked Emma. "Dev says we're starting Shakespeare next week," she replied, then caught herself. "I mean, Mr. Hartwell." Sarah's head snapped up. "Since when do you call him Dev?" Emma's cheeks reddened. "All the kids do." "He's cool about it." Something cold settled in my stomach. I'd met James Hartwell during parent night 3 months ago. Tall, perfect hair, the kind of English teacher who quoted poetry and made parents feel stupid. Sarah had lingered by his classroom afterward, asking about Emma's progress while I waited in the hallway like a chauffeur. "Well, show some respect," Sarah said, but her tone was softer than usual, almost fond. I filed that moment away in the part of my brain that cataloged suspicious sounds and engines. Something wasn't running right. 2 days later, Sarah forgot her phone while rushing to a PTA meeting. It buzzed on the kitchen counter as I washed dishes. The screen lit up with a text from James H. with a heart emoji. "Thank you for everything. Can't wait for tomorrow." My stomach dropped. I stared at that heart emoji until the screen went dark. When Sarah came home that night, flushed and happy, I handed her the phone without mentioning the message. She grabbed it quickly, checking the screen. "Any calls?" she asked. "Nothing important," I lied. The next week, I volunteered to attend Emma's parent-teacher conference alone. Sarah claimed she had a meeting, but her calendar showed nothing. I walked into Riverside High with my hands shaking slightly, telling myself I was paranoid. I found Hartwell's classroom and knocked. Through the glass door, I saw Sarah inside, her hand resting on his shoulder as they looked at papers spread across his desk. When they saw me, Sarah jerked her hand away, and Hartwell's smile vanished. "Jake," Sarah said, her voice pitched too high. "I thought you weren't coming until 4. "It's 4:15, I said, checking my watch. The air in that room felt thick enough to choke on. Hartwell shuffled his papers, while Sarah grabbed her purse, both of them moving like teenagers caught smoking. "Emma's doing excellent work," Hartwell said, not meeting my eyes. "Very creative writing." "That's great," I replied, studying his face. Guilt painted people in obvious colors, once you knew what to look for. We left separately, Sarah claiming she needed to stop by the office. I sat in my truck in the parking lot and watched Hartwell walk to his silver Honda. For a split second, he glanced back toward the school entrance where Sarah would exit. That night, I installed a second phone line in our basement workshop. The old rotary phone from my father's house, connected to a recording device I'd bought years ago for work calls. If Sarah was hiding something, I needed proof before I lost my mind completely. The last thing I wrote in my journal that night was, "She's not even hiding it." Just not from me. Emma's backpack was open on the kitchen table the next morning, homework spilling onto the placemat. As I packed her lunch, I noticed a sketch pad underneath her English folder. The drawing on the visible page made me stop breathing. 2 figures stood together, drawn in colored pencil with surprising skill. A tall man with perfect hair and a woman with Sarah's distinctive red highlights, both wearing capes like superheroes. At the bottom, in Emma's careful handwriting, Mr. H and Mom, the dream team. My daughter admired their affair. That hurt worse than discovering it. I closed the sketch pad and finished making her sandwich, my hands steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. Emma bounded into the kitchen, grabbed her bag, and kissed my cheek. "Love you, Dad," she said, completely unaware she'd just shattered my world. "Love you too, kiddo." After they left, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at that spot where the drawing had been. My wife was cheating with our daughter's teacher, and Emma thought it was heroic. I called in sick to work and drove to the library downtown. In the basement study rooms, I spread out a notebook and started planning. Not revenge, not yet. I needed to understand the scope of this betrayal first. "You look like heck," Tony said when I returned to work the next day. "Sarah finally and you?" "Working on it," I muttered, sliding under a Ford pickup. Tony was my closest friend, the only person who'd witnessed our marriage deteriorating over the past year. He'd also suggested multiple times that Sarah was shopping around, but I'd always defended her. "Yeah, you want to talk about whatever's eating you alive?" he asked. "Not yet." But I knew I'd need his help soon. Tony had skills I lacked: surveillance equipment, connections, and most importantly, no moral qualms about catching cheaters. That afternoon, I volunteered to help with Riverside High's annual spring carnival. Sarah acted surprised when I signed up, but I claimed I wanted to be more involved in Emma's school life. "That's wonderful," she said, but her enthusiasm felt forced. "I'm sure Mr. Hartwell would appreciate the extra help with setup." The carnival was 3 weeks away, 3 weeks to gather evidence and plan my next move. I spent those weeks learning Hartwell's schedule. He stayed late most Tuesdays and Thursdays, grading papers in his classroom. His lunch break was exactly 45 minutes. He drove the silver Honda, lived in the Riverside apartments, and jogged every morning at 6. More importantly, I learned when he and Sarah met: Tuesday evenings at the school library, Thursday afternoons in the parking lot behind the gymnasium, Saturday mornings at Riverside Park, where they sat on a bench overlooking the river and talked like lovers. I documented everything in my journal, writing with the methodical precision I used to diagnose engine problems. The evidence was damning, but I needed something undeniable. "I need you to install something in my truck," I told Tony during our lunch break. "What kind of something?" "Motion-activated camera. Dashboard mount." Tony studied my face for a long moment. "You sure you want to see what it's going to show you?" "I'm sure." He installed it that evening, a tiny device hidden behind my rear-view mirror. The next Thursday, I parked my truck behind the school gymnasium and waited. At 4:30, Sarah's car pulled up next to Hartwell's Honda. They sat talking for 10 minutes before moving to his vehicle. Through my side mirror, I watched my wife of 16 years kiss another man with the passion she'd stopped showing me months ago. The camera caught everything: their faces, the license plates, the timestamp, legal evidence of adultery. I drove home and cooked dinner like nothing had happened. Sarah arrived late, claiming traffic from a meeting that didn't exist. She smiled at me across the table, the same smile she'd given Hartwell an hour earlier. "How was your day?" she asked. "I fixed a transmission," I said. "Sometimes things break down slowly and you don't notice until it's too late to save them." She nodded absently, texting someone under the table. The next morning, I found a scarf on our living room floor. Expensive wool, not mine. When Sarah came downstairs for coffee, I held it up. "Found this by the couch," I said casually. Her eyes widened slightly. "Oh, that's probably from book club." Janet was wearing one just like it. "Smells like books," I said, sniffing it dramatically. "And betrayal." Sarah laughed nervously. "You're being weird, Jake." I handed her the scarf. "Maybe return it to whoever owns it." She stuffed it in her purse without another word. I knew exactly who owned it because I'd seen Hartwell wearing it during their parking lot rendezvous. That evening, I made my first strategic move. I sat Sarah down in our living room and took her hands. "I've been thinking about us," I said. "I know things have been rough lately. Maybe we should try counseling." Her face went through several expressions: surprise, guilt, calculation. "Sahi, you really want to do that?" "I want to save our marriage," I lied. She squeezed my hands, and for a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married. "I'd like that too." We scheduled our first appointment for the following week. Sarah thought she was in control, managing both relationships expertly. She had no idea I was setting up the dominoes. Through careful research, I learned that Hartwell had been married before. His ex-wife, Patricia, served on the school board and lived across town. Their divorce 2 years ago had been messy, according to public records. I found her at the grocery store on a Saturday morning, comparing prices on breakfast cereal. Mid-40s, blonde, tired-looking. "Excuse me," I said. "Are you Patricia Hartwell?" She looked up warily. "It's Patricia Chen now. Do I know you?" "Jake Morrison. My daughter Emma is in your ex-husband's English class." Her expression hardened. "Now what do you want?" to buy you coffee and ask about James. We sat in a corner booth at Denny's while Patricia stirred sugar into her coffee with angry precision. Let me guess, she said. Oh, he's charming your wife. I nearly choked on my coffee. What? James has a pattern. He targets married women, preferably ones with daughters in his class. Makes him feel powerful. She leaned forward. He destroyed my marriage by sleeping with my sister. Is he sleeping with your wife? I think so. Patricia reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. I've been waiting for someone like you. Someone who deserves to know the truth. Inside were letters, dozens of them, written in Sarah's handwriting. Patricia had somehow obtained copies of love letters Sarah had written to Hartwell over the past 6 months. How did you get these? I asked. James keeps trophies. These were in his apartment when I retrieved some of my old furniture. I made copies before returning them. She smiled grimly. I've been waiting for the right moment to use them. I read the first letter. Sarah's words describing how Hartwell had taught her to love again, and how I was too simple to understand real passion. Each sentence was a knife between my ribs. And why are you helping me? I asked. Because James Hartwell deserves to lose everything, just like he cost me everything. I thanked Patricia and left with the evidence that would end my marriage. But ending it wasn't enough anymore. I wanted Hartwell to pay for what he'd stolen. The spring carnival arrived with perfect weather and terrible timing. I'd spent 3 weeks planning what I now thought of as the finale, but as I set up carnival games, I realized I wasn't ready for it to end. Sarah worked the ticket booth, laughing with other parents while Hartwell supervised the dunk tank nearby. They maintained careful distance, but I caught their secret glances, the subtle signals of lovers forced to hide. Emma ran between game booths with her friends, excited and innocent. She'd be collateral damage when this exploded, and that knowledge sat in my stomach like acid. You okay? Tony asked, appearing beside me with a paper plate of chili. Define okay. Not planning anything stupid? I looked at him carefully. Tony knew me well enough to recognize dangerous moods. Define stupid. He handed me the chili. Just remember, whatever you're thinking, it's not worth going to prison. I took the plate and walked toward the food tent, where parents and teachers mingled around picnic tables. Hartwell stood near the dessert table, gesturing animatedly as he told some story to a group of mothers. I approached from behind, timing my steps to his gestures. As he raised his arms for emphasis, I tripped on an imaginary obstacle and launched my plate of chili directly into his lap. Oh my God, I exclaimed. I'm so sorry. Chili covered his khakis and dress shirt. The mothers gasped and scattered for napkins, while Hartwell stood frozen, sauce dripping from his belt. It's fine, he said through gritted teeth. Accidents happen. Let me help, I said, grabbing napkins and making the mess worse by trying to clean it. This is so embarrassing. As Hartwell stepped backward to escape my help, his foot hit a puddle of spilled soda. His legs went out from under him, and he fell backward into the dessert table. The collapse was spectacular. Chocolate cake, fruit pies, and frosted cookies cascaded over his chili-covered body. The entire carnival fell silent for a moment before someone started laughing. Then everyone was laughing, including several parents with phone cameras recording the mishap. Hartwell struggled to his feet, covered in food and humiliation. His perfect hair was matted with frosting, his dignity destroyed in front of the entire school community. So sorry, I repeated, offering him more napkins with sincere concern. These things happen. He snatched the napkins and stalked toward the parking lot, leaving a trail of dessert debris. Sarah followed him with worried eyes, but couldn't abandon her post without raising suspicions. By Monday morning, the video of Hartwell's fall had been shared across social media with captions like, "Teacher gets schooled by gravity," and "When you fall for the wrong thing." Our first counseling session was scheduled for Wednesday evening. Doctor. Michelle Barnes specialized in marriage therapy and had an office decorated with inspirational quotes about communication and trust. What brings you here today? She asked after we'd settled into her uncomfortable chairs. We're having trust issues, I said, looking directly at Sarah. Sarah shifted nervously. Jake thinks I'm distant lately. Are you distant? Dr. Barnes asked. For the next hour, Sarah performed the role of a confused wife, trying to understand her husband's paranoia. She was convincing, even bringing tears to her eyes when describing how hard she'd been working to support our family. "I love Jake," she said. "I just wish he could see that I'm doing my best." Dr. Barnes nodded sympathetically and scheduled our next appointment. As we walked to our cars, Sarah took my arm. "Thank you for doing this," she said. "No, I think it's going to help us." I kissed her forehead, tasting lies on her skin. "I hope so." That night, I called the second phone line from my cell phone and left a message. "Sarah, this is Dr. Barnes. I wanted to follow up on our session. Your husband seems genuinely concerned about your marriage. If there's anything you haven't told him, this might be the time for honesty. Sometimes confession can be healing." I disguised my voice and kept the message brief. Then I waited. 2 days later, Sarah approached me in the kitchen with tears in her eyes. "Jake, I need to tell you something." My heart hammered, but I kept my expression neutral. "What is it?" "I've been confused lately. About us, about what I want." She took a shaky breath. "There's someone at work. We haven't done anything physical, but I have feelings for him." The lie was breathtaking in its boldness. I'd watched them kiss, read her love letters, documented their affair for weeks. But she was still trying to control the narrative. "Who?" I asked quietly. "James Hartwell, Emma's teacher." I sat down heavily, performing the role of a devastated husband. "How long?" "A few months. Nothing has happened, Jake. I swear. But I can't stop thinking about him." I reached across the table and took her hands. "Sa, do you love him?" She started crying. "I don't know. Maybe. I'm so confused." "Do you love me?" A long pause. "Yes, but differently than I used to." I squeezed her hands and made my voice gentle. "What do you want to do?" "I want to try to fix us. End things with James and focus on our family." Another lie. I'd seen them together that very afternoon, planning another rendezvous through text messages I'd been intercepting. "Okay," I said. "We'll work through this." She looked so relieved, so grateful for my forgiveness. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have been proud of her honesty. That night, she made love to me with desperate passion, as if guilt could be erased through physical intensity. Afterward, as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and planned the final act. I owned a small storage unit in an industrial area across town, filled with old car parts and tools from my father's garage. It was private, isolated, and perfect for a conversation that needed to happen away from witnesses. I texted Hartwell from a burner phone, pretending to be a parent interested in private tutoring for my child. We arranged to meet Saturday afternoon at the warehouse address. Tony helped me prepare the space, though I didn't tell him exactly what I was planning. "Just whatever you're doing," he said as we moved equipment around, "make sure it's legal. Define legal. Not getting arrested legal." I'd thought about that extensively. My plan involved humiliation, not violence. Public shame, not physical harm. Hartwell would survive with his body intact, but his reputation destroyed. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, perfect weather for endings. I arrived at the warehouse an hour early and made final preparations. A folding table with Patricia's envelope of letters. A small video camera on a tripod, already recording. A sign reading "Home Wrecker" in large black letters. Hartwell's Honda pulled up precisely on time. He walked to the warehouse entrance wearing his weekend clothes, expensive jeans and a polo shirt that probably cost more than I made in a day. "Mr. Morrison," he called. "I'm James Hartwell." I opened the warehouse door and gestured him inside. Thanks for coming. This won't take long." He followed me into the space, looking around at the automotive equipment and tools. "This is an interesting location for tutoring discussion." "It's private," I said, closing the door behind him. Perfect for honest conversation. Something in my tone made him step backward. For the first time, he looked uncertain. "Actually," and he said, "I think there might be some confusion. Are you Jake Morrison, Sarah's husband?" "I am." His face went pale. "I should probably go." "You should probably stay." I picked up the homewrecker sign and held it out to him. "We need to talk about my wife." He backed toward the door and found it locked. I'd installed a manual deadbolt that required a key from both sides. Perfectly legal, since I owned the building. but effective for keeping conversations from ending prematurely. "Jake, listen to me," he said, his teacher voice taking over. "Whatever Sarah told you, you're misunderstanding the situation." "Am I?" I opened Patricia's envelope and spread the letters across the table, because these seemed pretty clear. He saw his name on the pages and stopped backing away. Recognition and fear warred across his features. "Where did you get those?" "Your ex-wife. Turns out you're not as careful with your trophies as you think." I held up the sign again. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to hold this sign and read one of these letters out loud while I record it. Then you're going to resign from Riverside High and end things with my wife." "You're insane." "I'm angry." "There's a difference." He looked around the warehouse, calculating his options. Tool benches, car parts, concrete floor, no windows, one locked door, and a husband who'd spent 3 weeks planning this confrontation. "If you don't cooperate," they continued, "I'll email copies of these letters to the school board, the PTA, and every parent in Emma's class. Your career will be over by Monday." "You can't prove anything." I pulled out my phone and showed him the video of his parking lot kiss with Sarah. "I can prove everything." He stared at the screen, watching his professional life crumble in real time. When the video ended, he looked up at me with something close to respect. "You've been planning this for weeks. Months, actually. Since I realized you were teaching my daughter that adultery was heroic." That hit him harder than any physical blow could have. His shoulders sagged as the full scope of his situation became clear. "What exactly do you want me to do?" I handed him the sign and pointed to the camera. "Start with the letter dated March 15th. The one where Sarah describes how I'm too simple to understand real passion." Hartwell held the sign with shaking hands and began reading Sarah's letter in a voice barely above a whisper. The camera captured everything: his face, the sign, the words that detailed his affair with my wife. "James has awakened something in me that I thought was dead," he read. "Jake is a good man, but he lacks the intellectual sophistication I crave. When James touches me, I feel like the woman I was meant to be." He stopped and looked up at me. "Please, this is enough." "Keep reading." "I know this is complicated because of Emma, but I can't help how I feel. James makes me want to be better, to reach for more than this small life I've been living. Maybe that makes me a terrible person, but I've never been happier." His voice cracked on the last sentence. Whether from shame or fear, I couldn't tell. "Now, the one from April 3rd, I said. "Jake, please read it." He found the letter with trembling fingers. "I've been thinking about leaving Jake, but I'm scared about Emma's reaction. She adores James as a teacher, and I worry that our relationship might confuse her. Still, I can't live this lie much longer. I want to wake up next to James every morning and not have to pretend anymore." I let him finish the entire letter before turning off the camera. The warehouse fell silent except for the sound of rain on the metal roof. "You're going to resign Monday morning," I said, pocketing the phone. "Personal reasons, effective immediately. You'll also text Sarah that your relationship is over and you're leaving town." "What about Emma?" "She's a good student." "This will hurt her." "Emma will survive. She's stronger than you think." He set down the sign and rubbed his face with both hands. "I never meant for it to go this far. But it did. And now you're paying for it." I unlocked the warehouse door and held it open. "You have until Monday morning to do the right thing. If you don't, this video goes viral and those letters go to the school board." He walked to his car without looking back. I watched him drive away, then locked the warehouse and drove home to wait for the final explosion. Monday morning brought chaos. Hartwell's resignation letter cited personal and professional conflicts as his reason for leaving immediately. By lunch, rumors were flying through the school about why their popular English teacher had vanished without explanation. Emma came home devastated. "Dad, Mr. Hartwell quit. Right in the middle of our Shakespeare unit." "That's terrible, sweetie." "Mom's really upset too. She was crying after the PTA meeting." Sarah had spent the day fielding questions about Hartwell's sudden departure. As the administrator who'd worked most closely with him, she was expected to have answers she couldn't provide without revealing too much. That evening, she cornered me in the kitchen. "Did you know James was planning to resign?" "Why would I know that?" "You two talked at the carnival, after the whole chili incident." I kept my expression innocent. We barely said 5 words to each other. She studied my face, looking for tells. But I'd spent weeks perfecting this performance. It's just strange timing, she said finally. Maybe he found a better job. 2 days later, Emma announced she'd been selected to present her family tree project at the school's Open Art Day, a monthly event where students displayed their best work for parents and community members. It's about family connections and influences, she explained excitedly. I drew our whole family tree going back to great-grandparents, plus important people who've shaped our lives. She'd been working on it for weeks in art class, and I'd heard nothing but praise for her creativity and research skills. I was proud of her dedication and had promised to attend the presentation. What Emma didn't know was that I'd spent Tuesday evening in her art classroom, using my janitor volunteer access to make some additions to her project. The school gymnasium was decorated with student artwork and filled with proud parents examining their children's creativity. Emma's family tree was displayed prominently near the entrance, a beautiful collage of photos, drawings, and handwritten descriptions. She'd included pictures of grandparents, aunts, uncles, and family friends who'd influenced her life. At the center were photos of Sarah, me, and Emma herself, surrounded by colorful branches representing our family connections. But I'd added some branches Emma hadn't created. New photos were discreetly integrated into the design. Surveillance shots of Sarah and Hartwell together, time-stamped and captioned. The parking lot kiss, their secret meetings, intimate moments captured through careful observation. Most damaging was the audio component I'd wired into the display. When viewers pressed a small button labeled Family Voices, they heard selected excerpts from Sarah's love letters, read in Hartwell's recorded voice from our warehouse encounter. Emma began her presentation at exactly 3 o'clock, standing beside her artwork, as parents and teachers gathered around. "This is my family tree," she said proudly. "It shows how we're all connected to people who shape who we become." She started explaining the various branches, pointing to relatives and family friends. The audience listened politely until someone noticed the surveillance photos. "Emma," said Mrs. Patterson from the school board, "what are these pictures here?" Emma looked confused. Those aren't mine." More parents gathered around studying the photos. Recognition dawned on several faces as they identified Sarah and Hartwell in compromising positions. "Is this some kind of joke?" asked another parent. That's when someone pressed the audio button. Hartwell's voice filled the gymnasium, reading Sarah's most intimate confessions. "James has awakened something in me that I thought was dead. Jake is a good man, but he lacks the intellectual sophistication I crave." Emma's face went white as she realized what was happening. Sarah, who'd been standing near the back of the crowd, pushed forward desperately. "Turn it off!" she screamed, lunging for the display. But the audio continued. "I've been thinking about leaving Jake, but I'm scared about Emma's reaction. She adores James as a teacher, and I worry that our relationship might confuse her." The crowd erupted in whispers and gasps. Some parents covered their children's ears, while others fumbled for their phones to record the drama. Emma started crying, not from embarrassment, but from understanding. "Mom? Is this real?" Sarah couldn't answer. She stood frozen while her private thoughts played for everyone to hear, her affair exposed in the most public way possible. Principal Watson appeared and shut off the audio system, but the damage was done. Parents were already sharing what they'd witnessed, and the photos provided undeniable evidence of the affair. "I need everyone to clear the gymnasium immediately," Watson announced. "This event is over." As people filed out, many stopped to stare at Sarah with expressions ranging from pity to disgust. She'd gone from respected administrator to school scandal in less than 10 minutes. Emma ran from the building without looking back. I found her in my truck, sobbing into her hands. "Did you know?" she asked. I pulled her close. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you shouldn't have to carry adult problems." She cried against my shoulder while I rubbed her back, both of us watching our family disintegrate in real time. Sarah didn't come home that night. She stayed at her sister's house, avoiding the phone calls and text messages from parents demanding explanations. Emma and I ordered pizza and talked about what would happen next. She was angry at Sarah, devastated about Hartwell, and confused about everything she'd believed about her family. "Were you ever going to tell me?" she asked. "Eventually, when you were older." "I'm not a little kid anymore, Dad." She was right. The past few months had forced her to grow up faster than any child should have to. I know, I should have trusted you with the truth. Are you getting divorced? Probably. She nodded sadly. Good. Mom doesn't deserve you. Tuesday morning, Sarah appeared at our front door, looking exhausted and desperate. Emma was at school, so we had the house to ourselves for our final conversation. You destroyed me, she said without preamble. You destroyed yourself. That was my private business. You had no right to expose me like that. I sat across from her at the kitchen table, where we'd shared 16 years of meals and conversations. You had an affair with our daughter's teacher and made her an unwitting accomplice to your betrayal. I had every right. Emma will never forgive me. That's between you and Emma. Sarah started crying, the desperate tears of someone who'd lost everything and couldn't understand how it had happened. I loved him, Jake. I know that doesn't excuse what I did, but I really loved him. I know, I read your letters. She looked up sharply. How did you get those? His ex-wife. Turns out you weren't his first married conquest. The truth hit her like cold water. Her face went through several expressions as she processed what I'd just revealed. He was using me? He was using you. But he said he promised. He lied. Just like you've been lying to me for months. She sat there for a long time, staring at her hands. When she finally looked up, something had changed in her expression. What happens now? I slid divorce papers across the table. You sign these, move out, and figure out how to rebuild your life. What about Emma? Emma will live with me. You can have visitation rights if you earn them back. Jake, please, we can work through this. No, we can't. I don't love you anymore, Sarah. I don't even like you. The words hung in the air between us, final as a judge's gavel. She signed the papers without reading them, her signature shaky but legal. Then she packed a suitcase and left our house for the last time. I watched her drive away and felt nothing but relief. Emma adjusted to the divorce better than I'd expected. She was angry at Sarah, but not broken by the betrayal. Kids are more resilient than adults give them credit for, and Emma had inherited my practical nature. 3 weeks after Open Art Day, we were grocery shopping when we ran into Patricia Chen in the produce section. Jake, she said warmly. And how are you holding up? Better than expected. And Emma, stronger than I thought possible. Patricia smiled. James left town, by the way. Took a teaching job in Oregon. Fresh start, new victims. Good riddance. Sarah's been calling me, she continued. That wanting to know how I got those letters. What did you tell her? That some secrets don't stay buried forever. A week later, Tony brought disturbing news to the garage. Your ex-wife has been talking to people, he said. Claiming you set her up, manipulated the whole situation. Let her talk. She's saying you forced Hartwell to resign, that the warehouse meeting was some kind of threat. I looked up from the engine I was rebuilding. Is that a problem? Could be, if she files a complaint. Maltreatment, extortion, that kind of thing. With what proof? The recording you made. I'd thought about that possibility. Sarah could try to paint me as the villain, claim I'd coerced Hartwell's confession through intimidation. Let her try, I said finally. I've got documentation of their affair going back months. Hotel receipts, phone records, witness statements. If she wants to make this ugly, I'm ready. But Sarah never filed a complaint. She knew too many people had seen the evidence of her betrayal, heard her own words played back at the art show. Any legal action would only draw more attention to her infidelity. Instead, she left town quietly, taking a job with her sister's real estate company in another state. Emma received a few apologetic phone calls, but no real attempt at reconciliation. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was closing the garage when a familiar car pulled into the parking lot. James Hartwell stepped out looking older and tired. Jake, he said cautiously, James, I wanted to apologize. For everything. Apology noted. We stood in the fading daylight. Two men who'd destroyed each other's lives over a woman who'd lied to both of us. I lost my teaching license, he said. The video you made. It went viral. Every school district in the country has seen it. Good. I know you hate me, but I need you to understand something. I never meant to hurt Emma. But you did. Yes. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. These are the original letters Sarah wrote me, all of them. I thought you might want them. I took the envelope without opening it. Why? Because Emma deserves to know the whole truth someday, not just the parts that serve your revenge. He was right, though I hated admitting it. Emma would eventually need to understand her mother's motivations, not just her betrayal. There's something else, Hartwell continued. Sarah's pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? She called me last week. She's about 3 months along. I did the math quickly. Sarah had gotten pregnant during our fake reconciliation period, when she was sleeping with both of us while pretending to choose our marriage. Is it yours? She says she doesn't know. I leaned against my truck, processing this information. Another child conceived in deception who would grow up marked by this mess. What does she want? Nothing from me. She's planning to raise it alone. And you're okay with that? I'm not okay with anything about this situation, Jake. But I don't have the right to demand paternity tests or visitation. I destroyed too many lives already. He turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, Emma's a remarkable kid. You did a good job raising her. Despite her mother, not because of her, maybe. But she got the best parts of both of you. After he drove away, I sat in my truck and called Emma. Dad? You sound weird. I need to tell you something about your mother. I explained about Sarah's pregnancy, the uncertainty about paternity, and what it might mean for our family. So, I might have a half-sibling, she asked. Maybe. Do you want me to care? I want you to make your own decisions about your relationship with your mother. Then I don't care. She made her choices. Emma had inherited my pragmatic nature and Sarah's stubborn streak. It was a formidable combination. A year passed before Sarah reached out again. Emma was 16 now, driving my old pickup and working part-time at the garage. She'd grown into the kind of young woman who faced problems head-on instead of running from them. Sarah's call came on a Thursday evening while Emma and I were working on a transmission. Jake, it's me. I know. I had the baby. A boy. Congratulations. I had a paternity test done. He's yours. The wrench slipped from my fingers. Emma looked up from the engine with concern. Dad? What's wrong? I covered the phone. Your mother had a baby. She says it's mine. Emma's expression hardened. What do you want to do? I don't know yet. I uncovered the phone. Sarah, we need to talk. I'm in town, staying at the Holiday Inn. Give me an hour. I drove to the hotel with Emma beside me. She'd insisted on coming, and I didn't have the energy to argue. We found Sarah in the lobby holding a baby who looked disturbingly like me at that age. This is David, she said quietly. The baby had my dark hair and Sarah's green eyes. He was beautiful and innocent, untouched by the mess that had created him. The test results? I asked. She handed me official documents confirming paternity. David Morrison was my son, conceived during the darkest period of our marriage. And what do you want, Sarah? I want you to know him. He deserves a father. Emma leaned forward to study the baby. He looks like Dad's baby pictures. You have the right to be angry, Sarah continued. Both of you. But David didn't choose this situation. She was right. Whatever Sarah had done, this child was innocent. What are your plans? I asked. I'm moving back to town. I got a job with the county. Nothing fancy, but it pays the bills. And you want what from me? Whatever you're willing to give. Child support, visitation, or just acknowledgement that he exists. I looked at my son, this unexpected consequence of betrayal and deception. He was sleeping peacefully, unaware that his existence had just complicated everything. I'll need time to think about this. I understand. Emma spoke up for the first time. Can I hold him? Sarah hesitated, then placed David in Emma's arms. She held him naturally, like she'd been born to be a big sister. He's so small, Emma whispered. Watching Emma with the baby, I realized this wasn't really about Sarah anymore. It was about family, responsibility, and the kind of a man I wanted to be. So I'll pay child support, I said finally, and I want visitation rights. But this doesn't mean we're getting back together. I know, I'm not asking for that. And Emma comes first. Always. Of course. Then we'll figure this out. Sarah rented a small apartment across town and settled into her new job. I established a visitation schedule with David, taking him every other weekend and one evening a week. The first few months were awkward. Caring for an infant while processing the complicated emotions around his conception challenged every assumption I'd made about moving forward. Emma surprised me by embracing her role as big sister. She helped with diaper changes, bottle feedings, and the 100 small tasks that come with babies. He's not responsible for mom's mistakes, she said one evening, as we watched David sleep in his portable crib. You're very mature for 16. I had good teachers and bad examples. Sarah kept her distance, maintaining professional boundaries during child exchanges. She looked tired most of the time, like someone carrying weight she couldn't set down. One evening, she lingered after dropping David off. Jake, can we talk? About what? About forgiveness. I settled David in his high chair and gave him some toys. What about it? I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway. Not for me, but for David. He's going to have questions someday about why his parents don't speak except about schedules and logistics. What kind of questions? Whether we hate each other, whether his birth was a mistake, whether his family is broken because of him. She was right. David would grow up knowing his parents' history, and he'd blame himself if we couldn't find some kind of peace. I don't hate you, I said finally. But I don't trust you either. I understand. Do you? Because trust isn't something you rebuild with apologies and good intentions. It's earned through consistent actions over time. How long? I don't know. Maybe years. Maybe never. She nodded sadly. I'll keep trying. After she left, Emma joined me in the kitchen. You handled that well, she said. Did I? You didn't yell or throw things. That's progress. She was right. The rage that had sustained me through the divorce was fading, replaced by something more manageable. 2 years passed in a blur of work, parenting, and gradual healing. David grew into a bright, active toddler who split his time between two homes without seeming damaged by the arrangement. Emma graduated high school with honors and earned a scholarship to the state university. She planned to study engineering, following my practical nature while exceeding my achievements. I'm proud of you, I told her at graduation. You taught me that actions matter more than words. Your mother taught you that too, in her own way, by showing me what not to do, by showing you that people make mistakes, and you get to choose how you respond to them. Sarah had kept her word about earning trust through consistent actions. She was punctual with child exchanges, honest about David's needs, and respectful of boundaries. She'd also started therapy and joined a support group for people rebuilding after infidelity. The changes were subtle but real. She seemed more grounded, less entitled, aware of how her choices affected others. One evening, as I was putting David to bed, he looked up at me with serious eyes. Daddy, why don't you and Mommy live together? He was 3 now, old enough to notice that his family was different from his friends' families. Sometimes parents live in different houses, I explained. But we both love you very much. Are you mad at Mommy? Sometimes, but not at you. Never at you. Okay. He accepted this explanation with the resilience of childhood, but I knew harder questions would come as he got older. Emma's college send-off party was held at the garage, with Tony providing barbecue and half the town showing up to wish her well. She'd become something of a local celebrity, the smart kid who'd survived her parents' public divorce and thrived anyway. Sarah arrived with David, who ran immediately to me for his customary hug. Daddy, Emma's going to school. She is. Are you going to miss her? Yes, but she said she'll come home lots. Emma knelt down to David's level. I'll call you every week, okay? And I'll send you pictures of my dorm room. Can I visit? When you're bigger? Watching them together, I realized how much Emma had sacrificed to help raise her half-brother. She'd given up typical teenage freedoms to help me navigate single parenthood. Later that evening, after most guests had left, Sarah approached me. Thank you, she said. For what? For letting Emma be part of David's life. For making this work despite everything. She made that choice herself? Still. You could have made it harder. Tony appeared beside us, slightly drunk and unusually philosophical. You know what I like about this whole mess? He said. Enlighten us, I replied. 3 years ago, you were ready to burn everything down. Instead, you built something better. I destroyed her reputation and ended our marriage. You exposed the truth and protected your family. Different things. Sarah smiled sadly. He's right. I destroyed our marriage. You just refused to let me take everyone down with me. On Emma's 19th birthday, she came home from college with a question that had been building for years. Dad, I want to know everything. Not the sanitized version you've been giving me. The whole truth about what happened between you and Mom. We sat in the living room while David played with his toys, and I told her everything. The surveillance, the warehouse confrontation, the art show exposure, the calculated nature of my revenge, and the satisfaction I'd felt watching it unfold. Were you wrong? She asked when I finished. About some things. I should have talked to you before the art show. You deserved to know what was coming. But were you wrong to expose them? I don't think so. But I might not be objective about that. I'm glad you did it. Why? Because you showed me that actions have consequences. Mom thought she could have everything. You, James, respect, family, without paying any price. You made her pay. That sounds cold. It is cold. But it's also true. Later that week, Sarah requested a meeting. We sat in a coffee shop downtown while David played in the attached playground. Emma told me you finally explained everything to her, Sarah said, and she asked, how much detail? All of it. Sarah nodded. Good, she deserves the truth. Do you regret it? The affair? Every day. But not because I got caught. Because I hurt people who didn't deserve it. Including Emma. Especially Emma. She was my daughter, and I made her an unwitting accomplice to betraying her father. It was the most honest thing Sarah had said in years. James called me last month, she continued. What did he want? To apologize. He's married now, teaching at a private school in Oregon. Says he learned from what happened here. Good for him. He asked about David. Whether he might be the father, and I told him the truth. That David is yours, and even if he wasn't, James forfeited any right to know when he chose to run instead of taking responsibility. I studied her face, looking for deception. But she seemed genuinely committed to honesty now. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know that I'm not the same person who wrote those letters. I'm not proud of who I was, but I'm working to be better. For David? For everyone. Including myself. 5 years later, I was teaching David to change oil in the garage when Emma called with news. Dad, I'm engaged. To who? Marcus Chen, Patricia's nephew. You remember him from high school? I remembered Marcus as a quiet, serious kid who'd worked part-time at the library. Good family, solid character, everything I'd want for Emma. Congratulations, when's the wedding? Next spring, and Dad? I want you to know that Marcus knows everything about our family history. I told him the whole story. What did he say? That he's impressed by how we handled it. His Aunt Patricia always spoke highly of you. After we hung up, David looked up from the oil pan. Daddy, was that Emma? Yes, she's getting married. Can I be in the wedding? We'll ask her. Will Mommy be there too? Probably. Good. I like it when we're all together. David was 8 now, old enough to notice when his scattered family gathered for holidays and special events. He didn't understand the history, but he sensed the undercurrents of old pain and gradual healing. Sarah and I had achieved something resembling friendship over the years. We attended David's school events together, shared holiday dinners, and maintained civil conversation. The anger had faded, replaced by the practical partnership required for co-parenting. At Emma's wedding, Sarah and I sat together during the ceremony, watching our daughter marry a good man in front of friends and family who'd witnessed our dramatic collapse years earlier. During the reception, David danced with Emma while Sarah and I watched from our table. She's beautiful, Sarah said. She gets that from you. She gets her strength from you. She earned that herself. Patricia Chen approached our table, elegant in her mother-of-the-groom dress. Jake, Sarah, thank you for raising such a wonderful young woman. Thank you for raising such a good son, I replied. Patricia smiled. Life has interesting ways of bringing people together, doesn't it? After she left, Sarah turned to me. Do you ever think about what might have happened if we'd made different choices? Sometimes, but not with regret. No, we got Emma and David out of the wreckage. That's worth something. The DJ announced the father-daughter dance, and I took Emma's hand for one last dance before she officially became someone else's family. Thank you, Dad, she whispered as we swayed to the music. For what? For showing me that integrity matters more than appearances. For fighting for our family, even when it fell apart. You're welcome. I love you. I love you too. As the song ended, I looked across the dance floor and saw Sarah dancing with David, both of them laughing at his clumsy attempts to keep rhythm. Tony was telling jokes to a table of wedding guests. Patricia Chen was adjusting her son's tie while he gazed adoringly at his new wife. 7 years ago, I'd thought my life was ending. Instead, it was just changing into something I hadn't expected but could live with. Emma and Marcus left for their honeymoon, and the reception wound down. Sarah, David, and I walked to the parking lot together. Dad, can we get breakfast tomorrow? David asked. Sure. Pick you up at 9? I'll have him ready, Sarah said. She hugged me briefly, the casual embrace of old friends rather than former lovers. Drive safe, I said. You too. I watched them drive away, then climbed into my truck and headed home. The garage would be closed tomorrow, and I had nowhere urgent to be. For the first time in years, I wasn't planning revenge, managing crisis, or fighting battles. I was just living, and that was enough.